What happens when you build a hotel chain from your father's legacy, only to realize you don't even recognize the people holding it together? Darren Brooks stood at the window of his corner office, watching the rain streak down the glass. 8 hotels, 8 different teams. All inherited when his father passed 5 years ago. He'd expanded operations, modernized the booking systems, and created sleek promotional campaigns. But lately, complaints had been trickling in, not about the rooms, but the staff late check-ins, rooms not cleaned on time. One guest emailed saying the lobby smelled like bleach for hours. Darren asked his district manager, who brushed it off, blaming staff shortages and young workers being soft. But something didn't sit right. Darren didn't want to rely on filtered reports anymore. He picked the 3rd hotel, one he'd never personally visited, in Mesa, Arizona. A mid-sized property with decent online reviews, but a few recent complaints about cleanliness and staff attitude. That was enough of a reason. He flew in under the name Daniel Bowers, a new housekeeping trainee from corporate headquarters. The disguise was tight: dyed hair, trimmed beard, glasses, and a pair of khakis that felt 2 sizes too big. He'd never met the team here. None of them had met him. Most only knew the CEO by title, not face. That was the advantage of running a chain. One face got lost in the layers of management. His first morning started at 6 sharp. The lobby was quiet, and the scent of coffee drifted from the breakfast bar. A short woman with tired eyes and a clipboard stepped toward him. "You the new guy?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am, Daniel Bowers, starting today." She barely looked at him. "I'm Sheila, housekeeping supervisor. Grab a cart, gloves in the back." "You'll be shadowing Petra." He followed her through the narrow service hallway. The air was thick with detergent. Most of the crew were already at work. Sheila didn't introduce him to anyone else, just pointed to a tall woman in her early 40s tying her apron. "That's Petra. Stick with her." "Try not to slow her down." Petra turned, offered a faint smile. "Hi, I'm Petra. You ever done this before?" "No, but I'm a quick learner," she nodded. "All right, let's start with the 4th floor. We're 2 people short today." Darren pushed the cart alongside her, noticing how she moved slower than the others, but not from laziness. Her hands trembled slightly when she reached for the keycard. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, migraine, comes and goes." They entered the 1st room. Darren made the bed while Petra scrubbed the bathroom. Her forehead was damp and she flinched at the overhead light. "You sure you're good to work?" "I asked Sheila if I could take a break," Petra muttered. "She said if I sit down I might as well clock out." Darren stood still. "She really said that?" Petra looked embarrassed. "It's fine. She gets stressed when people call out. We're behind already." He didn't push it, but his gut twisted. By noon, they'd done 7 rooms. Petra was visibly struggling. She dropped a bottle of cleaner and leaned against the wall. Darren grabbed it for her. "Petra, you need a minute. Sheila's on this floor. If she sees me sitting, she'll start yelling. Trust me." He didn't have to wait long. Sheila's voice echoed from the hallway. "What's taking so long in here?" She stepped inside, arms crossed. "Petra, pick up the pace. You've done this floor 100 times. "Sorry," Petra said quietly. "I'm just not feeling great." "Oh, here we go again." Sheila rolled her eyes. "You either work or go home. I'm not paying people to lean on carts." That was it. Darren stepped forward before he even thought it through. "She's clearly unwell." Sheila turned to him. "And you are, Daniel, the new guy." "Well, Daniel, you don't run this floor. I do. If people didn't call out every other day, maybe we wouldn't be behind." Petra stayed silent, eyes down. Darren forced himself to breathe. He wanted to rip off the glasses and tell her who he was, but not yet. Later that afternoon, during a break, he sat with Petra behind the building. She had her head in her hands. "Why didn't you just go home?" he asked. "I can't afford to. I've got 2 kids. One in high school, one in middle. I already took time off last week for my daughter's asthma. If Sheila writes me up again, I'm done." Darren rubbed his temple. The system was broken, not just Sheila, the whole setup. He worked the next 2 days without revealing himself. He saw Sheila cut corners, ignore safety protocols, and snap at another woman for taking too long in a room with biohazard waste. Petra kept pushing herself, never complaining. Another cleaner, a young man named Louis, stayed late to help her catch up and gave her his own migraine pills. By the third night, Darren couldn't sleep. He knew what he had to do. But it had to be done right. He called for an all-staff meeting the next morning, and this time he wasn't Daniel. Darren walked into the staff lounge just before the morning shift began. He returned the janitor's uniform to the supply closet and changed into the charcoal suit he'd packed in the rental car trunk. No glasses, no dyed hair, no false name, only Darren Brooks, owner and CEO of the Brooks Vista Hotel Group. He entered the staff lounge again, but this time every head slowly turned. Petra dropped her coffee. Sheila stood by the microwave, one hand on her hip, her mouth parted but no words came out. "I need everyone to take a seat," Darren said. "This won't take long." Louis looked from Darren's suit to Petra, then back again. "Wait, yes. I've spent the last 3 days working alongside you as Daniel Bowers. I wanted to see firsthand how things operate here, and I did." Sheila folded her arms. "If this is some kind of stunt, it's not," Darren said flatly. "This is a serious intervention." He looked around the room, making eye contact with each person who'd worked beside him. Some avoided his gaze, others looked stunned. Petra's face had gone pale. "I want to start by saying this. Most of you are doing your jobs under pressure I didn't fully understand until now. You're covering extra rooms, skipping breaks, and working through health issues without support. That ends today," Sheila scoffed. "You can't just walk in here and start throwing blame." "We've been understaffed for months. People don't want to work anymore," Darren turned to her. "And what have you done to support the ones who do?" "I make the schedules. I keep people in check. If I let everyone do what they feel like, nothing gets done." He took a step closer. "You told an employee with a migraine that if she sat down, she might as well clock out. You ignored a sanitation protocol on a biohazard cleanup. You raised your voice at staff in front of guests. It's a tough job. You think I enjoy yelling? No, I think you're used to not being held accountable." The room was silent except for the hum of the vending machine. He turned to the rest of the team. "If anyone here believes they've been treated unfairly or put in unsafe conditions, I want to hear it." "Right now." No one spoke for a moment, then Louis stood. "Sheila cut my hours last month because I asked for a different shift. I wasn't even asking for less work, just to start later so I could take my sister to school. She told me," a woman named Claire added quickly, "that if I brought up my back injury again, I was on thin ice. I have medical documents, I wasn't lying." Another man in the corner raised his hand. "She doesn't let us report equipment issues. I've been using a broken vacuum for 2 weeks. Darren looked back at Sheila. "Do you have anything you want to say to that?" Her jaw tightened. "They're exaggerating. They think just because you're here they can pile on. They don't need to exaggerate. I saw enough myself." He turned to the assistant operations manager, a soft-spoken man named Greg who hadn't said a word yet. "Greg, what's your role in all this?" "I just handle supply orders and payroll submissions. Sheila manages the floor." "Do you report to her?" She usually tells me what to log. I don't question it." Darren's tone sharpened. "Then start questioning it." Effective immediately, Sheila is no longer employed here. Sheila's eyes snapped wide. "What? You've created a hostile environment. You've endangered employees. You've failed to meet even the basic expectations of leadership. You can't just fire me without I can, and I am. Your final paycheck will be processed today. You'll be escorted out by security in 5 minutes." Sheila stood motionless, then let out a breath that was more of a hiss. "You're making a mistake." "No. I've been making mistakes for 5 years by trusting managers I never met." She stormed out without another word. Darren waited until the door shut behind her before turning back to the team. "I'm not here to hand out platitudes. I'm here to start fixing what's broken. That means restructuring management, increasing staff coverage, and putting real accountability in place. But I can't do that without you, so I need to hear more. Not just complaint solutions, ideas. What would make this job sustainable?" Louis raised a tentative hand. Can we get a second laundry cart upstairs? We lose time running back down every time one fills up, Claire added. More consistent shift scheduling. Every week's a surprise, it's hard to plan anything. Petra finally spoke, her voice quiet. We need someone we can talk to without fear. Someone who listens. Darren nodded. You're getting all of that starting today. He pulled out a notebook and pen. I'll be here for the next week, not in an office, on the floor. I want to see what works and what doesn't. Greg, you're in charge of interim scheduling, but I'll be overseeing everything. Greg looked mildly panicked. I'll do my best. Good, and you'll have help, Petra, she blinked. Me, you've been here longer than anyone else. You know the work, you've earned the respect of your team. I want you to step into a lead role temporarily to start. If it works out, we'll make it permanent. I don't know if you are, Lewis said. You've helped all of us. You already lead. Petra's eyes filled, but she nodded. Okay. I'll try. Later that afternoon, Darren joined Petra and Claire in room 208 to help with turnover. He stripped beds while they tackled the bathroom and restocked the mini fridge. The work was still grueling, but the tension was gone. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. You meant it? Claire asked him. About being here all week? Yes, he said, tucking a corner of the sheet. I'll be here until I understand every layer of this place. Petra looked up from the sink. You're going to see a lot. I'm counting on it. The door to the room creaked open as Lewis wheeled in the second laundry cart they'd requested. It wasn't new, but it was clean and sturdy. Maintenance had one in the back, just needed a new wheel. Darren gave him a nod. Good initiative. Lewis grinned and stepped back into the hallway, already moving toward the next room. By nightfall, Darren was exhausted. His hands were raw, his back ached, and his shirt was damp from sweat. But he felt something he hadn't in years: clarity. He sat alone in the break room, reviewing notes on his phone. A message came in from the guest services director at the Phoenix location. Another complaint. Different hotel, different problem. But the pattern was clear. He stared at the screen, then locked it and slipped the phone into his pocket. Tomorrow he'd be back on the floor. But soon he'd be somewhere else. And next time he wouldn't wait 3 days before stepping in. The next morning, Darren arrived just before 6. Dressed again in plain slacks and a black polo, a small nod to his role without reverting to the disguise. He wasn't here to observe anymore. He was here to restore. The lobby was quiet, but the air felt different. Not lighter exactly, but watchful. Staff nodded as he passed. Petra was in the linen room already, organizing the carts with more care than necessary. You didn't have to come in early, he said, stepping inside. She didn't look up right away. I needed the head start, still catching up from last week. He walked over and began folding pillowcases without asking. Petra glanced over. You serious? I'm not here to watch you work. Fair enough, she said, adjusting a stack of towels. I've been thinking about the new role. I don't want to be a supervisor who barks orders. That's not me. Good, he said. I don't want that either. She leaned against the shelf. Do you think people will actually listen to me? Some won't, at first, but they will once they see you're not just another voice above them. She nodded, then picked up a clipboard. I split the team into pairs for today. We've got 17 checkouts by noon and only 5 full-time cleaners. Lewis is covering double with me on the 3rd floor. Darren took the clipboard and scanned it. Where's Greg? Still at the front desk. Said he was waiting for someone from corporate to follow up. Darren raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He walked back into the hallway and made his way to the front. Greg stood behind the desk, typing slowly. A woman in a blazer stood beside him, flipping through a binder. Her badge read Daniela Regional HR. She looked up. Mr. Brooks. Daniela, he said, shaking her hand. Thanks for coming on short notice. Of course. I reviewed the documentation from our end. Frankly, it's thin. No formal complaints, no logged warnings. The floor supervisor was operating unchecked. He glanced at Greg. And you never thought to escalate anything? Greg shifted uncomfortably. Sheila had been here longer than me. I figured she knew what she was doing. Daniela turned to him. That's not how this works, Greg. Being new doesn't mean you stop using your eyes. I get that now, he muttered. I'll be sitting down with each staff member over the next 2 days, Daniela said. Private sessions. I want to hear how far things went under her management. I'll clear time in the schedule, Darren said. They'll need space to speak freely. He left the front desk and headed toward the service hallway. Just before the break room, he caught sight of a new face. A woman in her 20s, auburn curls tied back, standing beside a cart of fresh sheets. You must be the temp from the agency, Darren said. She looked startled, then nodded. Yes, Kendall, first day. I'm Darren, you'll be with Claire today. She's on the 2nd floor. As he turned to walk her down, a voice called from the stairwell. You don't want to pair her with Claire, said a tall man in a baggy uniform shirt. He had a lazy lean to his posture and a mop handle slung over his shoulder. Claire's slow. Always takes twice as long. Darren stopped. And you are, been on floors since before the renovation. Just saying, if you want efficiency, I'd put the new girl with me. Kendall looked between them, uncertain. You can go ahead to the 2nd floor, Darren told her. Claire's waiting by room 212. Once she left, Darren faced Ben. You often give management advice in hallways, Ben shrugged. Just trying to help. Then help by sticking to your assignment, and stop commenting on coworkers' performance unless asked. Ben snorted. Didn't realize we were doing everything by the book now. We are, Darren said, stepping closer. And you're already off page. He walked away without waiting for a response. By mid-morning, the 4th floor was at capacity. Darren joined Petra and Lewis as they tackled a suite with a broken vent and a carpet stain that looked like it had been ignored for weeks. I asked maintenance to fix that vent last month, Petra said, pointing up. They said they were waiting on a part. Lewis shook his head. Same excuse every time. Darren climbed the desk chair and tugged the vent cover loose. Inside was a thick clump of dust and what looked like an old candy wrapper. No part needed, Darren said. Just effort. Petra gave a low whistle. Guess that's been there a while. They kept working room by room. Around 11, Kendall passed by with a mop bucket and paused. Claire's showing me how to track linens. I didn't even know that was part of the job. It's not, technically, Petra said. But it helps. Darren watched Claire down the hall, carefully showing Kendall how to label the cart for laundry pickup. Claire didn't look up, just kept talking in a calm, steady rhythm. Back in the break room, Daniela had started her one-on-ones. Darren waited until lunch to check in. She looked up from her notes. It's worse than we thought. How so? Several employees say Sheila penalized people for speaking Spanish in the back hallways. Said it was unprofessional. One woman, Marisla, refused to switch to English and got her hours cut 3 weeks in a row. Darren's jaw tightened. Is Marisla still here? She's out today. Hasn't been back since Friday. Did anyone else report similar treatment? 2 others said she used to make comments about people playing the immigrant card when they asked for time off. No formal complaints on file, though. They were afraid to push it. He nodded once. Make sure that goes in the report. That's not just poor leadership, that's discrimination. I've already flagged it, Daniela said. If Marisla is willing, we'll bring her in for a direct statement. Might be worth reaching out personally. I will. He stepped out and found Petra by the stairwell, checking her list. You ever work with Marisla? All the time. She's quiet but solid. Took extra shifts when my daughter was sick last month. She coming back. She was thinking about quitting. Said it wasn't worth the stress anymore. Tell her I'd like to speak with her before she does. Petra gave a slow nod. I'll call her tonight. By late afternoon, the team had cleared all 17 rooms. Not without effort, Lewis had blisters on his palms and Kendall had made a mistake logging a damaged towel, but overall, the floor was cleaner and faster than the last 3 days combined. In the service hallway, Darren pulled Ben aside. You left your cart unattended outside 3 rooms, Darren said. And you skipped the checklist on room 409, Ben shrugged. Didn't realize we were tracking carts now. You skipped protocol. That's not negotiable. I've been here longer than most of them. I know what I'm doing. Then you know enough to do it right. Ben rolled his eyes. Whatever you say. No, Darren said, stepping closer. This isn't a debate. You've dismissed a fellow employee, ignored direct instruction, and now you're cutting corners. You gonna fire me for that? If it happens again, Darren said evenly. Yes. Ben stared at him for a long beat, then grabbed his cart and walked off. Petra approached from the hallway. He always acts like that, apparently, Darren said, but not for much longer. That evening he stayed late with Daniela, reviewing incident notes and draft schedules. Petra passed by with Louis on her way out. We're down someone tomorrow, she said. One of the agency temps isn't coming back. Why? Didn't like the pace, said it was too physical. Darren rubbed his brow. We'll adjust, but we're not lowering standards. Louis looked over. We're holding steady, just need more hands. You'll get them, Darren said. But until then, we keep going. As they left, Daniela closed her laptop. You're doing more than fixing a hotel, she said. You're rebuilding from the inside. He leaned back in the chair. That's the only way it lasts. Outside, the sky had darkened. The parking lot lights buzzed faintly. He sat in silence for a moment, then opened his phone and drafted a message to Marisla. He didn't want apologies. He wanted her voice, her truth. This wasn't about one hotel anymore. It was about the culture he'd allowed to grow in the shadows. Tomorrow, he'd face it again. Room by room. Person by person. Until there was nothing left to hide behind. By Thursday morning, the tone in the building had shifted. It wasn't cheerful, no one was pretending the job had gotten any easier, but the undercurrent of quiet dread that had followed every shift was gone. People moved with purpose, not panic. Still, the gaps showed. Petra's new duties pulled her off the floor more than anyone liked, and Louis was covering extra rooms again. Greg was trying, but he moved like someone constantly worried he'd mess something up. He had reason to. For the first time since he started, people were watching. Darren arrived early again, this time unlocking the staff access door himself. He was carrying a sealed envelope in one hand and a small envelope in the other. He walked straight to the office behind the front desk, where Greg was already seated, reviewing the supply order. You've got a scheduled review with Daniela today at noon, Darren said, placing the smaller envelope in front of him. But this can't wait. Greg glanced at the envelope, hesitating. Inside is a formal warning, Darren continued. Documented failure to report misconduct, allowing unsafe practices to persist and neglecting escalation procedures. You're not being dismissed, but if you ever let silence cover for leadership again, you'll be out. Greg looked down. Understood. I'm not interested in excuses, just change. Starting today, you'll shadow Petra for 2 hours every morning, learn what real floor leadership looks like. Greg nodded once, then stood up and walked out to the hall without another word. Darren turned and opened the larger envelope. Inside were printouts of the new staff policy updates. He'd written them himself the night before. They included language access protections, updated break protocols, and a new anonymous reporting line that routed directly to a designated HR officer outside the hotel. He pinned the first copy to the break room corkboard, taping the rest to staff areas on each floor. Then he headed to the second level where Petra was organizing supplies. She looked up from the clipboard and handed him a stack of key cards. Louis is pulling double again. I put him on the larger suite since he's more efficient, but we're barely holding. I know. I'm working on it. I asked the agency for 2 more temps. They're sending one tomorrow, maybe. Keep the shifts tight. No one should be doing more than they can. Petra paused. Marisla's coming in today. Darren looked up from the keycards. She said she'll talk to you after her shift. She only agreed to come back because I told her she wouldn't have to deal with the same people. She won't. I'll make time this evening. At midday, Darren joined Daniela in the back office where she'd been conducting interviews. She handed him a short list of staff who reported being targeted or ignored under the previous supervisor. None of them had filed written complaints. Until now, Sheila kept them scared, Daniela said. They didn't want to lose hours. That fear doesn't vanish overnight. It'll take more than policy sheets. Sheila also doctored some of the time logs. There's a discrepancy in hours for 3 employees last month. Fix it. Retroactively adjust the pay. Add a memo in their files confirming the correction. I'll handle it. Darren stood, stretching his back. I'm going to meet the new agency worker. He found her in the laundry room, sorting towels. Her name tag read Elena. She was young, maybe 21, with a quiet, methodical way of moving. She didn't look up when he approached. You settling in? She gave a small nod. It's a lot, but it's okay. If you need anything, speak to Petra or Claire, they'll guide you. I already asked Petra something earlier. She showed me how to stack the linen carts. She's been nice, he nodded. Good, keep up the pace and speak up if you're unsure about anything. Just as he turned to leave, he spotted Ben at the far end of the hallway, leaning against a doorframe with his arms crossed. He wasn't working, just watching. Darren walked over. What's your assignment, room 321? Waiting for the guest to check out. Then prep the cart. You don't stand around while others are working, Ben huffed. I'm not slacking, I'm just not rushing things. You're not being paid to lean on walls. You've taken liberty with this job for too long, and I've given you a warning. Ben looked away. I've been here longer than anyone. Seniority is worthless without accountability. Finish your assignment or you're done. Ben didn't respond. Darren waited a beat, then turned and walked off. By late afternoon, Petra flagged him down near the stairwell. Ben's gone. What do you mean? He left early. Didn't say a word to anyone, even left his cart half full of garbage bags. Darren didn't hesitate. He walked to the staff office, opened the logbook, and confirmed Ben had signed out at 2:30 without supervisor clearance. A direct violation of protocol, he called the front desk. Don't let Ben back in the building, I'll handle the paperwork. Daniela stepped in minutes later. I heard, he's finished. Don't process next week's schedule with him on it. Understood. As the evening shift wound down, Darren waited in the break room. Marisla stepped in at 6:30, hands still red from cleaning solution, eyes wary. He stood. I appreciate you coming in. She didn't sit. Petra said you wanted to talk. I do. I need to understand what happened. Marisla took a breath. When I spoke Spanish, Sheila would glare. Once she told me in front of another worker that I should speak American if I wanted to stay here. Did anyone else hear that? Yes, Louis, Claire too. She ever write you up? No, but my shift started shrinking. I used to get 5 days a week, then it was 4. Then 3. Did you ask her about it? She said I could reapply for more shifts if I wanted to prove myself again. Darren's jaw tightened. Do you want to stay here? I did, until she made it impossible. She's gone. Permanently. You'll return to your full shift schedule starting Monday, and you'll receive back pay for the hours you lost last month. Marisla blinked. Why would you do that? Because it's what should have happened all along. And because if I don't fix this, I don't belong running this company. She nodded once. Then I'll stay. For now. He held out his hand. She hesitated, then shook it briefly before leaving the room. That night, Darren walked the halls one last time. The air was still. The rooms were quiet. The carts were stored properly. The logs were clean. The new policies were posted in every supply zone. Near the elevators, he caught sight of Petra wiping down a handrail. You're still here, just finishing up. I like to leave things set for the next day. You've taken on more than anyone should have to. I see it. I'm not looking for praise. You're getting more than that. She looked up. Next week, I'm offering you the floor operations manager position. Full title, salary, benefits. You'll train under regional for 2 weeks, then take over. Her eyes didn't move. That's a lot. You've already been doing the job. This just makes it official. Okay, she said. But I want one thing in writing. What's that? That the next time someone like Sheila shows up, we don't wait until it's too late. Darren nodded. You have my word. She turned back to the rail, wiping it once more before heading for the service stairwell. He stood there for a moment, alone with the quiet. The hotel wasn't perfect, it wouldn't be for a while, but for the first time in a long time it was honest. And that was the only place real work could begin.